This is a Kirkendall Barrett presentation, darling. Well, hello, everybody. The episode is going to start in 1 second, but until it starts, I just wanted to do a couple of house cleaning things. First of all, we have a Patreon, and, you know, we talk about books. Books cost money, so if you have a couple of spare bucks, consider throwing it our way. And the Patreon is Reality Reading Rainbow at patreon.com. We have several tiers. Lowest tier is like $3. But you know what? I understand times are tough for everybody. So if you have a couple of bucks, great. If you don't, just continue to listen because your presence is our present. Also, we have a Facebook page, which is the Reality Reading Rainbow on Facebook. And also, we are definitely open to audience suggestions, or actually listener suggestions. And some of the best books I've talked about are listener suggestions. My favorite book so far that I've talked about this entire podcast is House of Hilton, listener suggestion. So if you want to suggest a book, you can always contact us at therealityreadingrainbow@gmail.com. That's therealityreadingrainbow@gmail.com. And now on with the show. Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of the Reality Reading Rainbow, where we talk about books written by reality stars and try to make sense of them. I am one of your hosts, Les Kirkendall Barrett, and I'd like to say hi to our other host, Victoria Wood. Hello, Victoria.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Victoria. You can find me on Instagram or by email at bibliolifestyle.com or on Instagram at bibliolifestyle. Super happy to be here, Les, and to continue talking.
And this is good to do this in the beginning. I need to learn from that habit. You can find me on Instagram at Kirkendall, which is KURKENDAAL. And I guess I should start an Instagram for us for this podcast.
I think so.
So that is in the works. So stay tuned, everybody. And I already mentioned we do have an email if you want to suggest books, realityreadingrainbow@gmail.com. And if you want to drop us a couple of bucks, which it's not a requirement, and I get it, especially with this Delta variant bullshit coming up. If you have a couple of bucks, you can always throw it to the Reality Reading Rainbow at Patreon. But like I said earlier, if you can't, that's fine because your presence is our present. And speaking of presence, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know how you listeners feel about this, but I was really mad at this show after the way that they treated Tiffany Moon last season. So the Real Housewives of Dallas has been put on an extended hiatus, which basically means that they are canceled because I guess Bravo never outright cancels a show. So So how do you feel about this, Victoria?
It's breaking news to me. Breaking news as of today, and I'm mad. You know, I'm really maddy right now. I'm upset. The first thought that came to my mind is, three thoughts. You're right. Bravo never cancels a show. They just go on hiatus. And if Dallas reappears, I predict it will be on Peacock.
Right.
But my sentiment about them, let's say, air quotes, canceling the show, I'm infuriated, not just because of everything Dr. Tiffany Moon was going through, But because I feel Bravo is afraid of the fans. They are afraid to speak truth to power, tackle the issues on their shows. It's very disappointing, but not surprising, if that makes sense.
Oh, no. And I agree. And especially, okay. So for those listeners who don't know, I'm Black, right? And my mom is from Texas, and I have a ton of relatives in Dallas. You could easily integrate the cast and find people of color in Dallas. Black people. It's in fucking Texas. Look, there are several. Come on, they had a show called Texicanas. They can find some other Latino members of the cast too. So it's
not hard to find cast of color. If they want to integrate the show, it is very possible. But I truly believe Bravo is, one, scared of their fandom, and two, see, here's my problem with Bravo. They never see anything through. You know, those really difficult conversations, those nuanced conversations. Anytime something gets super problematic, and full disclosure, I always felt Dallas was super problematic, but I'm just saying, anytime it gets to the thick of it, Bravo never sees it through. I mean, viewers would be pressed to share an example where there was a problem on Bravo and Bravo saw it through. There's none. It's zero.
And when they do see it through, they backtrack, and I mentioned this name a gajillion times, the whole Stassi Vanderpump Rules stuff. Yeah, they fired them, but then later said, oh, we regret it. So what good is that? They'll
never stick to it. And I don't know about you, Les, but hearing the Dallas news today, does it give you any thought for pause when it comes to New York and Roni? I mean, it's beloved. But, what are you thinking?
Okay, so I'm one of two thoughts. So one thought is Roni's been around longer, right? But in Clubhouse, we were always told that budget factors into it. And one of the reasons why Dallas lasted so long was, even though it wasn't high rated, it was a low budget show.
Right.
So that theory was shot out of the window because they canceled it anyway.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking that I don't know if they would if they would put Roni on pause for a long time, like an indefinite pause.
Right.
But I could see them putting Roni on a pause. I could see that. I tell you right now, if they fire Eboni, I'm done. Because because after all of this shit that she had to go through and all of the racist stuff that she had to deal with, if they don't give her another season, I'm out, because that's bullshit.
Well, here's the thing. Dr. Tiffany Moon will not be getting her second season, and I felt like she was a redeeming cast member for the show. She was bringing in viewers who would have otherwise canceled on Dallas. And now she won't have that season to, show us more of her and her family. So for me, it's sad all round.
Right. And the difference is, though, at least in Tiffany's case, nobody's getting a second chance. Like, she's not being singled out as
right.
But with Eboni's being singled out. Eboni's having all of these racist hit pieces against her. It's obvious racism.
Yeah.
So she needs another season. She needs another season. And if she gets fired, I look at it as racism wins.
Yeah.
Straight out.
Hey. All I will say is the news on Dallas today has given me pause for Roni. Yep. And I agree. Even if they do pause the show, it won't be for long, but just a pause. The fact New York, has never had a pause ever.
Right.
So again, I hate this.
And other shows have had pauses. Let's not forget, New Jersey went on a pause Teresa's entire sentence.
Yeah.
Remember that? So like 18 months, they went on a pause until Teresa got out of jail.
Yeah, but that was something the fandom could understand. Here's something that's happening right now that the fandom can't understand. Atlanta's been on pause, is on pause. Then there's no details, there's no contracts, there's no filming. Atlanta's on pause. I think with Teresa, love her or hate her, she was, she's a big star on the show. So the show going on hiatus because Teresa isn't there, the viewers that made sense to the viewers. Roni going on pause, immediately they're going to say it's because of Eboni. The viewership is extremely down, and they're going to have to revamp. In my opinion, Roni needed revamping to begin with.
Right.
What I don't want is them scapegoating Eboni as the reason for Roni needing a revamp, because it needed it anyway.
Right. And then I have a thought about this too, and I said this the other day on Clubhouse. The new guard, what I consider the new guard is like Potomac, Salt Lake City, and Dallas was the new guard, but it didn't catch on. Those shows are now turning into the best shows on the network. Potomac is outstanding this season.
I thought Potomac was outstanding since the very first season. Right. So I've been a day one viewer. I know you host the room in Club Bravo, the Potomac recap, but we haven't spoken, Les, since the trailer for Salt Lake City for season 2. Ooh. I mean,
it's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
I mean, Bravo is already dropping episodes from the last season, which is their first. Salt Lake City's new. Because I saw 2 recaps on my DVR for Salt Lake. So I can tell folks are getting super hyped for it. I'm super excited. I think it's going to be great. But I agree with you. Potomac right now feels like it's the franchise because...
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because of the 3 shows that are on right now, New York, Beverly Hills, and Potomac, we had an unofficial Clubhouse poll last week, and Potomac won. Potomac was the top show that everyone was looking forward to watching live. Everyone's only watching Beverly Hills now for the Erica of it all. Right. And now, the interest in that's kind of waning because we know what we know. Right.
But it's still, though, Beverly Hills is still a good season. Because last year's season was shit with the whole Denise thing. And then before that was Lucy Apple Juice. So Beverly Hills has had a few dud years in a row. For sure. So at least with the Erica thing, it seems like they're back on track again, at least.
I'm thinking it's going to be hard for them to do any more Lucy Apple Juicy, just anything frivolous anymore. Right. You have to come with hard-hitting drama. I am nervous, though, that as viewers, we might start to expect all these legal dramas because let's be fair. I feel Salt Lake City had a very strong season 1. These women came out to bat. However, it's the Jen Shaw of it all. It's like the Erica of it all with Beverly Hills. We were anticipating that. With Salt Lake, it's Jen Shaw. The one franchise that has 0 legal drama, but we're all hyped about it. And granted, they had a little legal drama before with Michael, is Potomac. None of the women have major legal drama. It's all shade, all tea, and they're bringing it. So I love Potomac. They're keeping it real.
And Beverly Hills, once Erica is done, we have allegedly Dorit.
Dorit, according to Kathy Hilton. Dorit. I can't. But and what I said about New York, I mean it. If they get rid of Eboni, because we know and we all know
if they get rid of her, we know why.
We know why.
I'm done. I'm done. Seriously, because it's like, that's just bullshit.
I will definitely be checked out from New York. I mean, I will, especially if we still have Ramona, we still have Luann. I love Sonia, but, you know, if we have all these three still there, then, you know, what are we doing?
And let's put it this way. I stopped watching Orange County last year. Kept it moving. Didn't even miss it. Didn't even miss it. Didn't even. And I am going to start watching Orange County again because I like Heather Dubrow. I do too. But with Kelly and her shenanigans and her racist shit, I was like, if I watch this, then I'm supporting Kelly Dodd's racism, and I'm not going to do that. So I stopped watching, and sounds like I didn't miss much. And, you know,
and now Kelly's gone. So
right.
Hey-ho.
Right. So and I'm gonna watch again. See? And that's the thing. And I tell this to people all the time. The way that you make your message known is through views.
Oh yeah.
Like if they're doing racist nonsense and putting up with it, then just stop watching it. Which,
agreed.
As I always like to say when people talk about cancel culture, it is not cancel culture.
Accountability culture.
Right. Because, and I use myself as an example. Okay, so I am Black. I watch your show. I like your show. If I find out that someone on your show is a racist piece of shit, I have the option not to watch your show anymore, which then gets you less views, which gets you less ad dollars, which, you know, affects your show and the network. And it's my right as a viewer of color, or actually anybody has the right. To do
anyone, just if it's not working for you, if it doesn't align with your values, sometimes you have to step back. There are other ways to entertain yourself, okay? i.e. picking up Eboni's book, Pretty Powerful, which I have to tell you, Les, I had two friends in Clubhouse, Marlene and oh gosh, now I'm forgetting her name, Lauren. They both
hey Marlene and Lauren.
Yes.
I know them. Hi, both of you.
I even got photos of the book. They were listening to the podcast and they picked up the book. So shout out to Lauren and Marlene for reading along with us.
And it's legitimately a good read. It really is.
Oh, I agree. And let's get into it.
Let's where do you want to start?
We left off at chapter 6. And the title of this chapter was The Court of Public Opinion, with insight from Dr. Frank Lotz, I think, or Lontz. Yeah. So anywho, this chapter was interesting and also, you know, kind of new because this guy, he's a public opinion guru. So nothing to do with appearance, you know, or the way you dress. You know, he isn't a stylist or anything. However, Eboni uses his point of view to say there are many other aspects to the pretty packaging. So it's not just the clothes we choose to wear, because she's saying there are other aspects such as the wrong or unintended message to everyone with whom you interact. So this guy, Frank Luntz, he is a sought-after public opinion guru. He specializes in political and communication consulting. He's worked as a pollster, and he appears frequently on Fox News, CBS News, and across other media and television outlets. And Eboni says he's the guy to call when you want to figure out what people are thinking and why they're thinking it.
Yes.
So I thought it was quite interesting her bringing this person in, you know, to get his point of view. But then I realized how valuable his point of view is because, you know, not just your appearance helps to shape public perception, whether it's public, your family, your neighborhood, your friends, your job, whatever. So when she goes straight in on him and he was talking about doing what do you call it? Like public opinion polling or something.
Polling.
Right. He was saying you'll have a 40-year-old woman and a 60-year-old man, and they have very opposite views.
Right.
Right. And I mean, yeah, a woman, man, they have different opinions, different values, but also the age gap. I noticed that. I mean, why would you compare someone who's 40 to someone, who's 60? But then they asked, which of these two has a better grasp of issues surrounding education? So 40-year-old woman, 60-year-old man. If you had to choose, who do you think would have a better view on education? Les, what do you think?
I would say the 60-year-old man only because of the age.
Okay. Lunt says the woman will typically win favor 4 or 5 times to 1 because, he'll then ask, who do you trust when it comes to national security and fighting terrorism? Again, 40-year-old woman, 60-year-old man.
Well, that I would trust the woman because...
Wrong! Lutz says,
oh, God.
Right. He says, in this question, the man will be preferred by 3 or 4 times to 1. So he is saying, right, because I agree with you, right? This is wild. Yeah. I agree with you. But he said, right, that this little exercise was to kind of show that there are inherent biases that still exist between genders. He says women have a distinct advantage over men in areas like education and healthcare because there's a greater emotional component with, that whole issue. However, men have a distinct advantage over national security, defense, and things that are just more numbers oriented. So even though, we want to act like we don't see gender, in the same way we see appearance, apparently it's a very real thing. So he's saying under the age of 30, it really doesn't matter. But if you're over age 50, those people care. So that's where you'll see like the gender biases in a weird sort of way. I mean, what do you think though?
No, I agree with him 100%. And I do think it is a generational thing. Because think about it this way. Think about the stuff, that your parents cared about when they were your age, which now you're at that age and you're like, oh, why did they care about that? You know what I mean?
No, I know, but here's a scary thing. When I was younger, I was much more of a radical free thinker, meaning I was way more open. If I'm being 100% honest, my late teens up to maybe late 20s, I think my mind was still way more open to different ideas and views and ways of doing things. Mid to late 30s, I found myself getting real hard. Like I'm much harder to persuade on ways to approach things. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what is mid to late 40s going to be like for me? Because I tend to look at a 10-year gap. Right. So when Lance gave us the 40-year-old woman and 60-year-old man, I found that interesting. That's a 20-year gap. Yeah. He also mentions the age 30, saying under age 30 really doesn't matter. They don't care. But over age 50, those people still do. So I think it's like when you're younger, you're a dreamer, no matter who you are. It's like you want to believe in good. You want to believe in different ways. You want to believe in equal opportunity. But as life goes on, you get harder and you're like, it doesn't work that way. Right.
But like for me, for example, I live in Los Angeles. So when it comes to like forward thinking and what you would call woo woo,
right.
It's normal to see that stuff here.
Okay.
So I think that like where you live has something to do with it too.
Oh, 100%. And I live in Florida and everyone blames Florida for everything. But it's true. You know what? It is true because you're right. the mindset is super, super, super different. What I found interesting was the advantages Luntz was saying women have, which is in telling a story and in communicating to the heart. They say when it comes to family and talking about the neighborhood and the community, women have a distinct advantage.
Right.
However, women are at a disadvantage when it comes to communicating to the brain. But he said there are exceptions to this. And what I found interesting was the first political example he used was Margaret Thatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a very polarizing figure.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I like the woman. I admire her. Policy-wise, there are things you can argue. But as a woman, first female prime minister, I do admire her. He then also, the next woman, who's the next big woman, major world power, Hillary Clinton. She never won the presidency, but she is a powerful figure. And remember, this was written in 2017. And he said these women, so Margaret Thatcher, Hillary Clinton, they have traits we see both in men and women. See, that I found interesting, because he was clearly saying women have distinct advantages here and they have huge disadvantages here. But he used these two women of having both traits in that they both have fortitude, they have toughness, but they're also emotional to some degree. And he's saying, they use body language. I know I gesticulate a lot. When I was in high school and they had like public speaking, I had to do my hand like this. This is how you're supposed to do it, right down at your belly button to stop you from doing all that. I swear they had a class for it. And they're saying that women, we're more emotional and we use body language. And he said a woman is more likely, and I never thought about this, a woman is more likely to touch her heart when she's talking about emotional things, or something about family and community. Right. And I find myself like, something painful or hurtful. Yeah, you do grab your chest, you put your hand to your heart. And I never thought about it. So going from a Margaret Thatcher and a Hillary Clinton and saying these two women have these, common traits between men and women, to then jump to Kirsten Gillibrand. I don't know if you know her, but I do.
Yes.
And she is the US Senator for New York. And his assessment of her is that she came across as a very positive and uplifting woman. When you see her, you see sunshine and rainbows. Whereas with Hillary Clinton, you don't see that. It was so interesting. And he was saying if he were coaching someone for office, again, it's hard to duplicate another person, but he was basically saying he would try to get Hillary a bit closer to Kirsten Gillibrand on the scale, because having that warm, fuzzy, radiating sunshine, apparently that's a good value. And that was probably a reason why folks didn't really, relate to Hillary, if that makes sense.
And remember, I don't know where you were in that election, but one of the main arguments against Hillary Clinton was when people didn't like her, she's just so cold.
See?
And that argument came out a lot. She's just so cold, which, was a bullshit argument, because if she was a man and acting like that, they wouldn't say any. Oh no, she'd be like, great, No,
but see, that's the thing. So I find it interesting that Luntz is saying Hillary has both, feminine qualities and masculine qualities. The problem is she's still a woman. So they want all feminine qualities. That's why he compared her to Kirsten Gillibrand, Luntz, this guy, because she is, she's what the public is expecting, which is the warm fuzzies, rainbows and sunshines. You can't be both, because again, Thatcher was also polarizing. Clinton is polarizing. Kirsten Gillibrand, whether you agree with her politics or not, she's not polarizing. She's just warm and fuzzy. It's just crazy. But people do care. And he was saying that it's storytelling rather than facts. And it's storytelling that involves emotion rather than, numbers and statistics. And unfortunately, those are also the same points that they consider weak. Now, what's interesting, he gives another US Senator, I don't know this one, Barbara Mikulski, right? But he said she would always make fun of her height. Apparently, she is 4'11", but she's really tough, and she's very. She has a sense of humor. You feel like she's fighting for you, but also at the same time, she's someone you'd want to hug. You wouldn't hug Hillary Clinton. You know what I'm saying? No. You wouldn't. He goes on to also then compare. So this one I know, Carly Fiorina, right? Carly Fiorina. So he says she tells a joke that people say to her that you don't smile enough, right?
Right.
But it's actually true, Lance is saying. So it didn't matter that she was the smartest candidate out there. She could be so qualified, but they felt she never had a heart. So not the extreme as Hillary Clinton, but she didn't smile. And reading that, I could relate, because growing up, I was that girl who didn't smile. I'd be walking and men would constantly say, smile. And I'd just, what do you want? So I could relate to Carly Fiorina in terms of not smiling. I mean, what do people want? And it's so funny because he also says, from CBS News to the Washington Post, numerous media outlets dissected whether or not Carly Fiorina should smile more. Why are we debating?
Why? Because you know what? She didn't feel like smiling. Why did she? Because then, okay, here's the deal though. Then if she would have smiled and she wasn't genuine about it, then they'd be like, oh, but she's fake. She's fake. So she couldn't win.
You can't win. And there's another chapter I want to talk about where you can't win. But then he goes on to talk about Hillary again in terms of her tone, her voice, right? So forget the fact that she has all this, political baggage. But apparently, folks had a huge problem with her tone of voice. Women aren't supposed to yell. If you're in a room with thousands of people and you're at the microphone, remember that the microphone projects you. Now, I talk loud, I'm a yeller, I project, microphone or not. But apparently, if you project too much, it doesn't come across well. Folks feel like they're yelling at you. So they kept hammering her on the fact that, she's loud. I'm like, okay. You're saying she's not feminine enough. Now you're saying she's too loud. It's just like, how do you win? And headlines in the news were saying Clinton's habit of speaking in a way that sounds like she's yelling. And this was not just social media, but papers, legitimate publications are writing about it. But there's a history to it because there was female hysteria,
Right.
So they're saying that's something as well. Also, female hysteria reared its ugly head. And I like that she mentioned this because in the Republican primary debate, Trump accused Megyn Kelly, who's a journalist and former defense attorney, of having, and I quote, blood coming out of her wherever. I'm sure a lot of people remember that if you were watching the debates. I know I did. And that was just crazy to me. But see, these are the tropes of women. So even though I know Eboni's book, Pretty Powerful, is all about, not true. The title would make you think it's all about the physical because it's being pretty.
Right.
But it comes down to your gesticulations, to the tone of voice, to whether you place your hand at your heart, whether you're warm and sunshine like Kirsten Gillibrand, or you're a cold hard bitch like Hillary Clinton,
And a major example of this was Kamala Harris during the debate when Pence was talking over her and she's, I'm speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You notice she kept it very light. She kept her tone down, and yeah, and it was so. I found it so interesting because the next day, women I knew, there were articles as well. And every single woman I knew, every single article was about how at that point, women knew exactly what she was going through because they had been through it themselves, hands down.
100%. That, I think that was an element that really made Kamala more relatable and liked by women. I'm not saying she wasn't liked, but that factor that added to her being super relatable to women 100%. So yeah, again, I'm walking away with more info from Miss Eboni. It's also about your tone of voice and not just your appearance, because she ended this chapter by saying, when considering our pretty power, the entire picture is one that will be in question, whether it's our look, the way we speak, the words we use, or even the volume at which those words are being said. It is amiss if each of these elements is not maximized to its full potential. So I appreciated that chapter, the court of public opinion. But the next chapter is...
Was that with Marcia Clark?
Yes, because I was going to say that chapter is rivaling the Bryant Howard lady, Free Enterprise chapter 5. This one by Marcia Clark, that one is rivaling to be my favorite chapter. So you guys, chapter 7 is entitled Trial by Fire with Insight from Marcia Clark.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know Marcia Clark, well.
Were you here in the States for the OJ? Well, actually, you probably weren't even that old.
I was paying attention. Oh, no. 1990, was it? 94, 95. I was a teenager. I was paying attention. Not close. My dad, however, he had the television on that 24/7. So if I came home, because I was away for school, but when I'd come home on a weekend or something, it was going on. It was all everyone ever talked about because it was huge.
Yeah.
So Marcia Clark, everyone, she was the prosecutor in the OJ trial. Again, I know this is a long time ago, but this right here made history for TV lawyers. Just put it that way.
Well, the OJ trial is what created court TV.
Exactly. Because this was the first major trial that was televised start to finish. But Eboni's relationship with Marcia Clark was that this was the first female attorney she ever saw in a courtroom, full stop, period. Not on a TV show, not on a movie, a real life female lawyer. And this is where she makes the point that representation is super, super, super important. Mm-hmm. Because if you can see it, you can be it. If you can't, you don't even think about it. And Eboni starts the story by telling us she was watching the OJ trial live in a salon, getting her hair done, right? This was her mom's salon at the time, getting her hair done. And she saw this lawyer. So this is her inspiration for being a lawyer, right? Marcia Clark. And the whole OJ trial, of course, it's infamous, but I never really thought about the woman who was prosecuting the case.
Well, it was because I lived here in Los Angeles during the OJ trial.
Wow.
And so it was a circus. It permeated all of the news. Everybody talked about it, no matter who you were. It sparked conversations about race. It was a lot. And one of the major things was how Marcia Clark looked. Even in the LA Times, every day they would give a rundown of her outfit. I mean, a lot of it wasn't favorable. A lot of it was not favorable.
I mean, first let's dissect this. This woman was the only woman in the DA's office in LA at the time.
Yes.
And of course, she's experiencing, sexism at all levels, in all corners and everything.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, and we'll get to that, how Judge Ito treated her.
That's we could do a whole podcast on that. But yeah, that was wild. But what I appreciated, let me say that, I appreciated Eboni asking how she felt being assigned this case. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, it's like OJ.
Right.
But for her, it wasn't a big deal at the time because he wasn't that big of a public figure. Like, they knew who he was. He was a big sports figure. However, the fame he had, he kind of went quiet,
Yeah. No, and living here in LA.
Right.
So basically, OJ, like, his name was out there, because he did the Naked Gun movies. Yeah. So he was known for that. So he was one of these people. He wasn't like, during that time, he wasn't like a mega star, but you'd hear his name around, right. Like you'd hear about him, and his name was out there for sure. I remember that.
Right. So Eboni said she was 12 years old at the time. And to your point, every publication was asking, what is she wearing to court today? But even 12-year-old Eboni, was wondering why no one was asking about Johnny Cochran's hair, right. Why? And the fact that this guy was a big powerhouse attorney, because Eboni notes he loved his silk ties, flashy suits, all these different things. However, no one's asking what he's going to wear, but they want to know what Marcia Clark is wearing. How short is her skirt? What color is she wearing? Pantyhose? What's going on? And clearly, she never thought, for a second that her appearance would come into question. It was more her competence, but no one paid attention to that. Instead, It was all about her clothes. That was just crazy. But then Eboni goes on to give a parallel and give a real life example of saying, when she was doing her weekly O'Reilly segment on Fox, she said if she was going to talk about abortion or rape or anything really heavy, she would wear a white dress of pearls, just something soft, because, she was going to get into a gritty argument. However, when she asked Marcia Clark, well, hey, did you give any consideration to this? She was like, no, she never thought about it. She actually was against it. And I appreciated that Marcia was kind of pushing back on Eboni's view of, being pretty powerful and using your appearance as an advantage. Because she didn't agree. So when Eboni asked her if she had any regrets, like, okay, present day, would you do this over? Would you have paid attention to your clothes? She said, if I started becoming glammed up and letting all the makeup people, who, by the way, started crowding the courtroom. So they're seeing all these articles about her appearance, real life, and they're showing up to the courtroom saying, hey, I'll do your makeup, I'll do your hair. I mean, it's crazy. She's saying she would have been slammed for that too, because then they would be saying, oh, she's all glammed up now, both her co-workers as well as the media, as well as saying, the fact that they were reporting that she had a makeover, when the truth is she needed a perm so badly, she ended up blowing out her hair.
And I remember that. That made front page news.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that made front page news. And it was Marcia Clark had a makeover. I remember. Yeah. If they talked about it, it was on the front page of the paper. That was like the lead thing in the news. Yeah.
I mean, so she had said, again, she did a blowout because it was necessary. She didn't have time. She actually didn't even have money to get her hair done at the time. Right. So she said, just imagine how crazy that whole fiasco went, and that she said her makeover consisted of a friend who loaned her a concealer pencil, which, by the way, her son stuck in the drain, playing around with it. And that was her makeover. So if the media ran with what this woman had to do out of necessity, she was convinced that there was no way she could have won. So the fact that she didn't do a makeover, they were saying all these things. And if she did do a makeover, they would be talking about it. She didn't even know what her suits being off the rack meant. She was like, right, doesn't everyone buy clothes off the rack? So for her, it wouldn't have helped her. And basically, I feel like that's her view. She also made the point to Eboni, she wasn't a TV lawyer who's speaking for a quick 5 minutes.
Right.
Her audience is that jury over there. And whether or not they're going to view her in a favorable light, whether they're going to feel she's credible, whether she's speaking their language. And those were her main priorities. And what I appreciated, and when reading this transported me back to Eboni's Harlem dinner in the current Roni season, because Clark said to her, you need to know your audience.
Yes.
Each word she ended with a period. Know your audience. And she goes on to give us examples. And when I saw that, I flashed back to the Harlem dinner, because I'm like, Eboni, this was not your audience. This was not your people.
Exactly.
Because that's what Marcia is kind of here saying, because she's saying, if you have a jury and they feel some type of way about the person on trial, because she's saying, believe it or not, people come in with views. Someone's favored more than the other. And if you've done jury duty, they tell you to be impartial and so on. But we're human beings. We're programmed a certain type of way. And you can't approach them and say, he's guilty. This is why, lock him up, even if it's a death penalty case, she was explaining. Right. And I love the example she gave of Casey Anthony, because that's a case I knew and followed in real time. It was in Florida and she was just up the road. The Casey Anthony thing I remembered. And they were saying, she was this sweet persona that you'd never think would harm her baby. And because of that, you have to approach the jury a certain type of way. So she was doing the OJ thing. And he's very beloved and he's popular and people are thinking about these things. So it's like, again, she wasn't a lawyer for Casey Anthony, but she was, doing a contrast. That was a huge case as well, not as big as OJ. So she was saying you need to gauge your audience.
Right.
And I felt, Eboni, listen to this woman.
Listen to her. Listen to her.
Because she knows what's going on. I swear. I flashed back to the Harlem dinner. And I also loved that.
I was going to say, it's on tonight. The Roni's on tonight. And I'm thinking the same thing about the Jew Belong.
Ooh, Black Shabbat. Yeah. We're going to be watching that end tonight. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to get mentally prepared.
Yeah.
Because even though Eboni wasn't heading this event up, she had a hand in organizing it. And I'm like, know your audience, please. Yes. But in addition to saying know your audience, Marcia also said her advice would also be to wear clothes that are the least obtrusive and the less eye-catching that you can possibly wear, because you want to play up your message and downplay your appearance. So see, it's like she was really pushing back on Eboni.
Right.
And her kind of tone of the conversation. And because also she goes on to say, can you imagine if the OJ trial was happening now in the age of social media, Facebook, Instagram, like the memes that would be coming out, just everything that was going on? I mean, it would have been even worse for her because people would be snapping her pictures when she's going to the supermarket, when she's having dinner. So it would have been way harder. And she admits that she would probably have to pay attention to what she was wearing outside of the house, even when she's not in court, because in this climate, you're on 24 hours a day.
And another thing I remember about that is even back then, Marcia Clark would get paparazzi'd in her private life too, as the trial went
progressed. Right. See, that's interesting. I didn't even know that part. But yeah, you know, she went on to say, Marcia Clark, that even though she was, you know, doing this high profile case, when you really think about it, that wasn't her biggest problem. Her biggest problem was actually that judge.
Yeah.
She never cared. She could have ignored the media. She could have ignored, you know, the tabloids, the press, just everyone commenting on her appearance. Her biggest problem was that judge. And he was quite an asshole.
Oh, God.
What I find interesting is this man, you know, women's groups. There was a feminist group that was pointing out to him, hey, you know, this is what you're doing. And he's like, no, what are you talking about? And then they had to put together like a video montage to say, this is what's going on. And he's like, oh, shit. And
it was Tammy Bruce, because I remember it was Tammy Bruce from the National Organization. I think National Organization of Women. And I remember Tammy Bruce because Tammy Bruce used to have a radio show here in LA. She used to have a talk radio show. And so, yeah, Tammy Bruce was the one that pointed it out to him.
Yeah, and you're right. It's the LA chapter of the National Organization for Women. It was Tammy Bruce. She was also a radio talk show host as well. And yeah, it took this video montage for this asshole to say, oh, shit, you know, this is what I'm doing. And what was kind of sad but heartwarming at the same time was now for about 2 to 3 weeks, Marcia Clark said she got to experience what it was like to be a man in the courtroom because he finally treated her with some dignity and respect. He went back to his old ways, you know, it didn't last. But just for that moment, you know, she wasn't just Marcia, she was Miss Clark, you know, she was respected. There was a better attitude. But of course, it went back to same old. But for her, you know, those few weeks kind of, you know, it was an experience for her. And for me, that was kind of sad, you know.
It's very sad. And then especially since he was shopping a TV show too.
Oh, so then she goes on to say how disgusting this man was. You know, he would call in the lawyers. Of course, he's a judge. You know, he has this leverage and force them to meet with these celebrities in his chambers like it's a showroom. Oh, come on in. You know, bring your cameras, bring your people. Right. And, you know, subject these attorneys who are real life people doing a real life job. They're not show attorneys. So for me, you know, that was also just very sad and hard for her. And yeah, it was just crazy.
You know, it's a trial about two people who were murdered, but, you know, he didn't keep that in mind. He, you know, tried to, but I remember during that time, so many of the people from that trial tried to get fame off of this trial.
Right.
Like I remember there was this one girl. So one of my coworkers at the time knew one of the women that was a juror. I forget what her name is. I'm not going to even say her name just in case it's wrong. But she went and after the trial did a Playboy spread.
Ooh, our friend from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Faye Resnick. Faye Resnick as well.
No. The morally corrupt Faye Resnick.
Yes. But people tried to get entertainment careers off of this trial. And it's like, you were a juror. How did that translate into a talent?
I don't know. What I will say is when I'm watching the news, which even though I'm an avid Bravo junkie, I'm an avid bookworm, I'm also a news junkie, and I find value in the legal analyst coming on. You know, when they had the whole Trump impeachment thing, like, yeah, I'm happy to hear from, you know, these news anchors, but I want to get the legal analysis, like what's really happening here, you know, just give me some facts. So anytime there's anything legal happening, I appreciate that point of view. So that came from the whole OJ trial. The fact, and Marcia Clark admits that had it not been for the OJ trial, she would have never had a career as, you know, like an on-air legal expert. Eboni would never even dream of, you know, again, being an expert on television. So even though there were some shady people trying to capitalize on fame, there was some good from it. And there was. Yeah, and even though Eboni does not agree, because quite frankly, you know, if you read the book, guys, you'll see at the end, I'm not going to spoil it, but Eboni doesn't really agree with Marcia Clark's assessment of the whole thing. You know, she would have obviously gone about it differently. But at the same time, I feel, you know, Marcia was under different circumstances. So even though you might have substance, to some degree, you do have to pay attention to your clothes.
You know who else was discovered in the OJ trial?
Who?
Star Jones. That's how Star Jones became famous.
Oh, hell.
Because she was a legal commentator. That's
right. Yeah. See what I'm saying? That's how a whole bunch of people, it seems, they really kind of got their fame from this. I mean, yeah. I gotta say though, Les, Eboni has been talking to a lot of heavy hitters, historical figures.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I'm impressed. Just people from different walks of life, as well as different times in life, you know, so it's not all present day folks. She's like, going way back.
Like, did you read the next chapter?
Yes.
With the pageant, the Miss America. She's Miss America, right?
Yes. And I don't get emotional often. Not true. I think it goes back. In my old age, I'm getting more emotional. But I found myself welling up for this girl. You know, in the early parts, I had a little well up moment. So you guys, chapter 8 is entitled Face Value. And it's with insight from Kirsten Haglund. I think that's how her name is. And she was Miss America 2008. Her story is quite interesting and quite moving. And I applaud Eboni for including her story in a book that's entitled Pretty Powerful. Because even though I know Eboni's intention in, you know, kind of saying to folks to be thoughtful and intentional when they're cultivating their appearance and the way they present themselves. However, there is a thin line between cultivating your appearance and being intentional and then aspiring to impossible beauty standards. Mm-hmm. Because that's a very real thing. There are folks who cross that line to attain their idea of perfection. And that's not healthy. And that's what the person, Kirsten Haglund, she's at the center of that, where she missed the mark. And her story starts when she was 12 years old. And that's when she started struggling with anorexia. And as a child of coming of age in the late 80s and 90s, and I've said this a million times, especially on Clubhouse, for me, I aspired to be the Naomi Campbell. Naomi's tall. I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'3". You know, she was very thin. You know, she was a model who was, for me, you know, one of the first, I mean, there was Iman, don't get me wrong, but, you know,
but of our generation, Naomi.
Naomi was it. That's what I was going to say. Like, there is Iman, but Naomi was it for me. So that's me. That's what I clung to. She was a person you'd see in magazines. And back then you didn't see a lot of Black women in fashion and in magazines, to be quite frank. So she was it. And I remember wanting to be that thin. Here's the problem, though. I loved food. I just couldn't stop eating. And in my family, you know, and in Caribbean households, it's like we congregate around food. Like, food is a big thing. So I can understand growing up and aspiring to be that. Now, I fortunately never crossed that line. But when I was reading about this poor 12-year-old girl, she was doing ballet and she strived to be... See, she never saw it as thin. It was just for her to be perfect. That was her idea of perfection. That was the thing she could control. It was about being exceptional in her craft. And for 3 years, she became a shell of a person. And it was only in, you know, she was like late 15 going on 16. Even her parents had to reckon with it. You know, teachers at her school were calling about her. Right. Her parents were in denial. You know, they're good people, but it's like, you can't see it. You're just like, no, she's the dancer, you know,
right.
So on. But then her dad, you know, looked into it and he's like, holy shit. Yeah. You know, these are the symptoms. This is what's going on. And fortunately for her, she got help.
Uh-huh.
What was interesting is that the girl went from ballet and wanting to achieve kind of this level of perfection to then now entering pageants, something she did later in life. So unlike Eboni, who was in pageants from very, very young, this woman started pageants later in life. She was in her teens, late teens, entered her first pageant. And she decided, and this is where I felt like, oh my God, this girl is so brave. She decided to make her platform about her experiences being an anorexic. I just about died.
Uh-huh.
Because again, as a teenager coming to grips with all these things, you know, she was in a public setting. She was speaking to a group of people who are sponsors for these charity events and so on. And all of a sudden she blurted it out, not just to say my platform is this, but blurted out her story. And she started to panic thinking, oh my God, what did I just say? These people are not going to get it. You know, she's up in her head, but it was quite the opposite reaction. She had multiple people coming up to her and saying to her, oh, I know someone who's had struggles, or I've been in AA for 12 years, or my wife has an eating disorder and I have a daughter. So this was, you know, she saw people open up and be vulnerable. And this was all in 2006, y'all. It's crazy.
And then, but this is what's fucked up about the whole situation. Then she started getting shamed for her looks.
See, that's what I was just going to say. You can never win. This girl, she went through everything she went through. Her platform was consistent for every single pageant. Hi, my name is so-and-so. This is my platform. This isn't just something I'm passionate about. This is something I've lived. And the only reason she did these pageants was for the scholarship money, you know, let's be clear. And she won every pageant she competed in. She got a whole bunch of money from it. And she won her pageant, by the way, in a $15 gown from Salvation Army that she wore to her prom.
Yes.
So this girl is probably what people would call today basic. I don't think she's basic. I think she's amazing.
She's beautiful. I'm looking at a picture at her.
Yeah. She never overthought her whole appearance situation, because also when she went off to compete like in the big pageants, it got to a point where they were trying to change her. First, they were trying to make her look older. Then they were saying, no, let's do less makeup, that sort of thing. It was just very mixed messaging.
Because she was like 18 or 19 when she was doing it. The pageants.
Right. Yes. She was 18 going on 19. And the message was very, very confusing for her. And then she just decided, basically, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to wear what I want to wear. And what a normal 18-year-old girl was going to wear. And after she won the pageant, of course, she got a whole bunch of designers coming to her. But she wasn't going to dress like she was 26 or 27. She was a 19-year-old girl. So she wanted to stay true to herself. What I found to be very wild is the fact that when she wanted to cut her hair, she had to ask permission.
Yes. Well, okay. I'm in a show right now, and I also have to get permission to cut my hair.
Okay. Well, that's insight I never had.
That's in my contract. It's in my contract. I have to ask before I cut my hair.
Well, I'll give the organization props for allowing her to cut her hair. So she had long, lustrous, beautiful hair, and she cut it into a pixie bob because pixie bobs were in. And people who had photos of her when she won with her long, pretty hair are now saying, well, you look way better with longer hair.
Right. And men.
She had men looking her up and down. Again, she's a 19-year-old girl. To be honest with you, that's like creepy. You bring your daughter or your son to go meet Miss America, right? Why is any grown man looking up and down this woman and saying to her, oh, you're Miss America? Like, what did y'all expect? So it's very difficult, They want you to be conservative, but then they want you to be sexy. They want you to look older, but they want you to look younger. I mean, this poor girl was just all over the place. It's like she couldn't win. Right.
But
then, of course, Eboni, she twists things around and makes it a lesson in true Eboni fashion. And she's saying, for every woman, she said, for every woman, whether they're pursuing a professional goal, whether your goal is to be the face of your organization, or in this case, your Miss America, the need to look the part is obvious, but make no mistake about it. Almost every single job or advanced opportunity you seek or any promotion, your face and your appearance will be evaluated. So people don't just care about the fact that, oh, you can do the job or you're a good spokesperson. They still very much care about what you wear. Oh. And it's even more brutal in pageantry.
I just found a picture of the pixie cut. It's cute. It was cute.
It was cute. And again, she's a young girl. Like,
yeah.
At that age, that is when you cut your hair, color your hair. You do crazy things. I mean, I haven't had a hair color in God knows forever. I've been wearing my natural hair, but I remember being that age. I've probably been through like 5-10 hair colors by then, So
I have a 13-year-old with purple hair, so I know.
You know what's funny, Les? I remember growing up and coloring my hair, and I went away for school, so I wasn't home. And I come home, I'll have a new hair color, or my friends would do, we do our hairs in the girls' bathroom and whatever. Long story short is my mom always used to say it to me because it also wasn't a part of school code, right? But I didn't care. I do it anyway. She'd be like, oh no, when you're older, you can do whatever you want with your hair, but don't do all this crazy shit. They're going to call me from the school. And I remember saying to her, when I'm older, I'm not going to want to do it. I want to do it now. Right. And it's true. It's like, it's a way bigger deal to me. I have no one policing me at this point, but it's just like, so at that age, as a woman, I can say you can experiment more with your appearance and your look. You're going to see what works for you and what doesn't. And then when, instead of changing your hair every week or every month, when you're older, it takes you like 5 years to give yourself a new look. I thought her pixie cut was cute. I was like, let the girl live. It's hair. It grows back. She's 19.
Did you ever see that? Did you ever watch that TV show Felicity? Did you ever hear that story? There was a TV show called Felicity, and the girl, it was the actress Carrie Russell, and she had big, beautiful hair. And then in one of the seasons, Felicity cuts her hair short. And you know that over half of their viewership stopped watching the show because she cut her hair.
Why are people married? So no, I didn't know that story. But why are people so married to hair? It grows.
Right. People
want change, So, geez, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name. There's this woman, I can't remember her name now, but I remember reading a book catalog. She has a book coming out September. I can even tell you when. But she was the daughter of a star. Mm-hmm. It's in the UK, but I think it can be applicable. Oh, you know who it can be applicable to? Britney.
Okay. Oh,
right. Okay. So like the whole Free Britney thing right now, the woman's memoir, the name I can't remember now. What she's trying to share with the public now is the fact that the public didn't want her to grow up. It's like Britney. The public didn't want Britney to grow up. They wanted her to stay the same little girl from the Mickey Mouse Club, the girl who started doing music and, was cute, right. But they didn't want her to grow up and deal with real life problems. And I think as a society, even though I don't know that show you're talking about, they want to preserve them.
What show was the girl on? Because my husband is British, so he probably has.
I can't remember. I'll probably have to text you.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing... She has a memoir coming out. I know I can find it.
And of course, my husband heard British and came running out on that.
I'll look for it, but I know her dad was famous. I remember seeing it. I was like, yeah, I know this woman. But yeah, her hang up is no one wanted her to kind of grow up, They just wanted her to stay a child. So I think it's with this girl, right, Kirsten. They wanted her to keep her hair.
Right.
The show Felicity you're telling me about, they got angry when she cut her hair.
Yep.
And folks just want, kids to say, who I felt also had an identity crisis? Justin Bieber. He was a cute little boy that everyone liked, but then he's growing up into a man. And it's like, no, we don't want this drama. I don't know.
Right. And like living in LA, there's a whole child star thing, and they end up having and not all child stars succumb to it. Some make it, but it messes them up, a lot of them.
Hey, Kyle's sister, Kim Richards.
Oh, but yeah, exactly.
Housewife reference. Here we go. I truly believe she is scarred from those years. Again, some people, they're able to transition okay.
Right.
Others aren't, and there's a lot of resentment. She said it. She had no friends. She doesn't know how to make friends. And, because she was always in that bubble. She was always working. But, so we see all these changes.
I was going to say, and if you want to, I do talk about Kim Richards and this whole thing. Listen to the House of Hilton episodes of this podcast.
Yes.
And I go in depth about it.
No, you do. I did listen to that one. I mean, I didn't even read that book. I was like, holy shit, I need to get that one.
That book is really good. I think out of all the books I've read for this podcast, that is my favorite book.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
It is. It sucks you in. Wow. It's so good. And the Richards part was only a chunk of the book.
Huh.
Oh, wow. It's really good. You, as a reader, you would love it.
I like narrative nonfiction. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, you would like the Richards part was literally like 4 or 5 chapters out of this big, thick, giant book.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to us wrapping up Pretty Powerful next week.
And I know we kind of discussed it. Did you order your Dorinda book yet?
My copy of Dorinda, my Dorinda book is in the mail.
Because that's like, I say we do that next.
I agree. It's Bravo News, just in case you missed it. So Dorinda is hosting something, isn't she, Les?
She's going to be on the mash. They're doing a mashup of different housewives. And I know she's going to be on that.
I think they said she's hosting something too.
Oh.
I don't remember. I probably heard it wrong. But yeah, she's doing a whole bunch of things. So here I was thinking Andy brought her on Watch What Happens Live to promote her book. But no, she has a show thing coming up. So
and from what I gather, they did her kind of dirty.
Oh, no, they did. They did. And I'm looking forward. Oh, here's a funny thing. So I did a book list on my website, bibliolifestyle.com, you guys. And I was saying books I'm looking forward to reading in August. And I listed Dorinda's book. And when I tell you, comments on blogs are rare, especially a new blog, because I've only been at it for like 18 plus months, right? And someone commented about the Dorinda book, basically saying she's the most horrid person. They hope it's an entertaining book. I said, well, I can assure you it's not an entertaining book. It's about her life, but she does share a few hosting tips.
There you go.
But people feel so strongly about Dorinda. It's either you really like her or you don't. And if it compelled someone to put their name and email address to leave a comment on a blog, that tells you the feelings are strong. Yes.
Well, I'm so ready for that. So wow. So I guess next episode is our last Eboni episode until we and then we move on to Dorinda. I'm looking forward to that too. Well, if you want to find us, we gave all of our information at the beginning of the podcast. And like I said, if you are on Clubhouse, you can catch my rooms, the Real Housewives of Potomac recap, which is on Monday afternoons, and the Bravo Detective Agency, which is on Wednesday afternoons. Well, actually, it's 10:30 a.m. West Coast, 1:30 East Coast. Catch that as well. Are you hosting any Clubhouse rooms, Annie?
No, I'm not hosting any Clubhouse rooms right now. You just have to find me on Instagram where I'm sharing about books. Yesterday, I actually shared some feel-good books because I feel like life in the world and the news and everything has been so heavy. So we just need something where we know the ending is happy and warm and fuzzy, because sometimes we do need them. But also listen to this podcast, because that will take your mind off things, you guys. So do it.
And like I said earlier in the podcast too, we take your book suggestions. House of Hilton was a listener suggestion. So you can email the reality reading rainbow at gmail.com and send us whatever suggestions you want, and we will read it. And I think that's it, right?
I think that's it.
All right. So until next time, keep reading. Bye.
Bye.